Thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me at the back. I was just saying to Adam, I'm quite happy to shout. I don't really need a microphone, but I'm being told that it's being recorded. So thank you everyone for having me. I appreciate this is the graveyard shift before lunch, and I'm going to talk about business, which is usually quite dull, but we're going to try and keep it light. We're going to try and keep it interesting. So a little bit about me. I am not an accountant. I just want to be really clear about that. Whilst we run New Zealand's largest accountancy, I'm not an accountant. I am a tech person. I'm actually not really a numbers person, but we won't really get into that. So my wife and I started this business about 7 years ago because we were pretty confused about tax. Didn't really know what we were doing. We were both independent contractors, didn't have a clue how to do anything, but we made a couple of spreadsheets to muddle our way through, and we suddenly realized after about 6 months of muddling through that with our spreadsheets we actually found something that a lot of other people wanted. So we quit our jobs, we started building out this business, and we're 5-6 years later. We're 105 staff across 3 countries. We serve tens of thousands of Kiwis, Aussies, and some people in a new country we haven't announced yet. You can probably guess where that might be. And yeah, what we do is effectively we pay and file the taxes for sole traders so that they can get back to doing what they enjoy doing. So a little bit about what we'll be going through today. Do we have a clicker, or am I just going to, I can just shout at you? All good, thank you. So what are we going to talk about today? So we're going to cover the things that a lot of people don't consider when they go out working for themselves. We're going to talk about setting up your own business and what that might mean for you. Talk about growing your business, and it's really important we all think about this as well. Getting paid and taking payments. We're going to talk about subcontractors and employees, because that comes up quite a bit. And lastly, managing the financial side. We're going to talk things about business expenses. I will leave time at the end for questions. I appreciate you guys have got lunch coming up as well. My one ask of everyone, if you can keep all of your heckles until the end, and then I'll reply to them all at once in one big chunk, all right? If you heckle in between, then I'll lose my train of thought. All right, let's crack on. So, setting up your business. Now, we talk to a lot of coaches, and in our most recent investment round, we actually got investment from an equity fund called Athletic Ventures out in Sydney, and they are all current and former sports stars that invest in businesses. And when we chat to those folks, when you chat to Mitch Stark and you chat to the guys out there, Matthew Dellavedova, they don't know anything about business. And that's fine, because that's not their world. Sports is their world. And they're not expected to know anything about business. But when you go out and start working for yourself as a coach, maybe you come out of professional sport and you start to pick up some work, even going onto the speaking circuit, you need to know the fundamentals around what is the right business structure for you. Now, I put myself out there as being the poster child for making mistakes at this, so often I'm going to be referring back to myself and the mistakes that I made. So, when I first became self-employed, I thought I had to register a company. Genuinely, I just wanted the business cards. You know, I want to give people business cards. Yeah, James Fuller, thank you, James Fuller. But it turns out you don't actually need to register a company to be in business. As a sole trader, you can claim business expenses, you can register for GST, you can hire staff. So you don't always need to go and register so-and-so limited, James Fuller Limited. You can trade as yourself with your own IRD number, and you can actually go and earn income independently. So I did not know that. So when should you be a sole trader and when should you be a company? It's very much up to you. If you're ever unsure, and I'm sure we can put something out there to you all afterwards, MB here in New Zealand have a great tool on their website called the MB Business Selector, where it asks you maybe 5 questions, and then it tells you whether or not they think, as MB, you should be a sole trader or you should be a company. But usually, if you have permanent members of staff, you're taking on debts, you might want to sell the business at a later stage, you have a lot of inventory, then probably a company structure is right for you. But if you're working on your own, you maybe have some subcontractors, you have business expenses, you want to register for GST, then sole trader is probably going to be the right way for you. That is not financial advice. Please do not take anything I say here as financial advice. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. But one of the things when you set up your business that everyone is really unsure about when you start out is how much you should charge. And so a lot of times you'll look at what other people are charging, and you'll say, maybe I'll charge an hourly rate, and I'll try and charge similar to what the market is charging. But a lot of people don't factor in how much they're actually going to have in their pocket at the end of the day. Once they've taken care of their expenses, once they've taken care of tax, maybe put some money away for savings, how much is actually left over? And so it's really important when you go into business, when you're thinking about your business, because as coaches, It is a business. For a lot of people, it will be still a passion project, but it is a business in the eyes of IRD. So having a plan to factor in things like tax, the lack of sick leave, maybe lack of holiday pay into your prices is really important to give you the comfort that you're not going to be up against it financially, to make sure that you can continue on in your business for as long as possible. We'll talk a little bit later about business expenses because there are a lot of misconceptions, and I'm happy to answer a bunch of questions around those. But factoring in things like how much you're going to have to pay for equipment, and you folks will have a bunch of equipment that you'll use day to day that will all qualify as being business expenses, but things like superannuation. We'll talk a bit about KiwiSaver later, but self-employed people are the worst for paying into their KiwiSaver. They just don't do it. And they go, I'll just get to it later. And later comes around and you realize you haven't planned ahead for retirement. So really important that you think about these things, even just from a cursory perspective, when you set your prices about how much you're charging for your services, just to make sure that you're covering your costs and you're covering what you need. Finally, things like calculating your taxes and ACC. Just by a show of hands, who has received an unexpected ACC bill at some point in their lives? Okay, it's most people. Good, not just me. When that bill turns up, usually it's October, November time, it turns up and you're not ready for it. No one is ever ready for that ACC bill. But if you work out ahead of time how much that's going to cost, you start putting a little bit away each time you get paid, then you'll be prepared when that comes in. And it's all about, in the same way that you would prepare yourselves or the people you're coaching for any big tournament, for anything they're doing. What is it? I don't know whether you guys use this mantra, proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. It's the same thing when it comes to your business. Really important to just get that proper preparation in there, because effectively you're going to lose a bunch of your money to tax, and you kind of need to know roughly how much that's going to be. All right, let's talk about growing your business. Really important. So a lot of you are going to be in a position at the moment where you think, I can't take on any new clients right now. I'm super busy. I've got lots on my plate. I don't really need to think about it. But when the time comes, thinking ahead to when you might need to take on some new clients, there's a lot of things that you can do to make sure that it makes it really easy for you to grow your business. So number one, find the right marketing channels. So social media, TikTok, Instagram. I know it sounds cringeworthy to get on there and start hawking your wares, but it genuinely does work. If you want to grow your business, if you want to talk about being an advocate in your industry, you have to engage with the wider community on social media. It is absolutely critical. And that's because you're showing your personal brand. Now, as coaches, you will have a personal brand, whether you know it or not. There will be people around you that will talk about the work that you do, the quality that you provide, the successes you've had in your career. That is your personal brand. Putting it out there is in the same way that we as HNRY will run some adverts on TV. It's about putting ourselves out there and saying, if you want quality service, if you want great customer experience, this is where you go. You guys have all got what I would consider to be a portfolio under your belts. You folks have all got a portfolio of things that you've done in your career that is your marketing collateral. That's your personal brand. And so finding the right channels to grow your business, whether that could be sort of local, it could be national, it could be global. There are all sorts of ways that you can go and grow that. And again, this is not about pouring yourself out on TikTok. This is just about having a plan for when you need to, if you want to grow your business, where are you going to go to do that? Again, just really good to get a plan around that. Building great relationships with your current coaching clients. It's amazing to me, probably less so in your industry, but in other industries like creative freelancers, how little they invest in building relationships with their current clients. And that means understanding the problems their clients are facing, what's coming up for them, where are they headed, checking back in on them even when they're not working with them. And again, more in the kind of freelancing industry, but you imagine you're a graphic designer, you do some work for someone, you finish that piece of work, you probably don't talk to them again until they come to you and say they want more work. But what we say to those freelancers is you've got to check in regularly. You've got to see if there's any work. You've got to prospect. You've actually got to hustle using your existing clients because they know how good your work is. They know what your results are like. They know how you work. They can recommend you to other people. And especially in this country, people are always, they're terrible at asking other people to recommend them. You know, like if you went to some of your clients and said, do you have anyone else that you would recommend me working with? It's a simple question. You might easily pick up some more work. There might be other folks out there who really like the results that you get. But if you don't ask, it's not going to happen. And it's much easier to get new work when you've already got work than it is to be struggling out there, trying to hustle for work where you don't have a source of income coming in. because everyone can smell desperation, let's be honest. Knowing when you should raise your rates. So, just by a show of hands, again, if you're comfortable doing so, how many people in the last 18 months have raised their rates in some way? Man, I was not expecting so many of you. Well done, because particularly self-employed sole traders are the last people to raise their rates. Like, we talk about inflation, we talk about cost of living. When you're in a personal capacity like you are, sometimes it can be really hard with your clients to say, hey look, I'm taking the decision to raise my rates because my costs have gone up. And we see across sole traders and self-employed, big businesses will raise their rates all the time. We can all gripe about the price of cheese at the supermarket and how expensive it is these days. They're raising their prices forever. They will continue to raise their prices, but it's a hard conversation when you have a personal relationship with someone to say, I'm going to have to raise my rates. But if you have an honest conversation, we're all in the same boat. What we found, and I think a lot of you have been in this situation, is when you start talking to folks about raising your rates, you're standing by the quality that you deliver to your clients. And they say absolutely, whether that's $5 an hour more, $10 an hour more, because they know that they're getting really good value on the other side. So for those of you that haven't, or maybe haven't considered it, do consider thinking about your costs, thinking about how much you're going to be left with after taxes, after expenses, those sorts of things. And if you need to raise your rates, go and have that honest conversation. Because if you're delivering quality for your clients, they will easily pay you more. All right, getting paid and taking payments. So for some of you, you might be issuing invoices to clubs that you're working with, maybe even to individual clients. But if you're going to invoice, just invoice promptly and correctly. And it's a funny thing to say to some people because most people look at that and go, well, duh. But the number of people that we find who spend lots of time, probably not in this room, finessing their invoice template. You know, making it look really jazzy. They put the crazy fonts and the colors. It's mostly the graphic designers, I can shit on there. But they will spend more time finessing their glossy invoice template than they will actually spend doing the work for the client. And what we always say is, Brenda in accounts hates your fancy invoice. They do, because fancy invoice templates, all the jazz, all the fonts, they don't load into accounting software nicely. They probably don't have the payment details in the right place. We just say to people, just do it promptly, do it correctly. Simple, basic invoicing is all that's required. Show your client that you spent more time thinking about the work that you're doing for them than you did about the fancy invoice template that you send. It's really, really simple. Now, again, because it's before lunch, I'm going to try and get some audience participation in. Has anyone ever had problems getting a client to pay? Has anyone had problems with late payments? A few people kind of thinking about it. This is an awkward conversation. Going to a client and saying, hey, your invoice is past due, or I was expecting to be paid on X date and you haven't paid, when can I expect it? Particularly in the run-up to the likes of Christmas. It's a super awkward conversation, but if you put yourself in the mind of saying, okay, I am a business, that is an expected conversation to be having. You're going to have this conversation with people at some point, if you haven't done already, and you need to get comfortable with having that conversation, because otherwise, if you don't chase, they won't pay. And 99% of the time, it's not because they don't want to pay you, or because they've decided your work's not good enough. It's because they've forgotten. It's because the email got lost somewhere, or they got distracted doing something else. And so you have to get comfortable having that conversation with people. And it's not a rude thing to do when you've provided a service and someone owes you money and there's a contract in place that says that they will pay you. You don't have to be an asshole about it. You can just email them and go, hey, I just noticed this payment was delayed. Can you give me any view on when that might be expected? And there are many, many things you can do further down the line if they refuse to pay, etc., etc. But if you can get comfortable having that very simple conversation, you will find that you will get paid on time, because people will remember when your email comes in, because they will be horrified that they didn't pay you right the first time. And they will make sure that goes to accounts, or that they pay it via internet banking, because they don't want to let you down. And that's really important. And again, awkward conversations, but if you consider yourself in that business sense, you have to be able to have that conversation. In the same way as, I was talking to one of our investors, AFL player Matt DeBoer, and he was saying that when they get the young kids that come in to the training ground, and they've got the big I am, and they've got the big ego, and they start acting an arse on the training pitch, they have the hard conversation, and they take them aside, and they say, if you had food on your face, wouldn't you want someone to tell you? And most of these kids will go, yep, I would. So they say, well, the food on your face is you're acting like an arse in front of the rest of the team. And if you have to have that conversation about late payments, you're doing the same thing. You're saying to them, hey, this is actually quite embarrassing here. You should know that that doesn't look good for you, that you're making late payments, that you're missing payments. And if you're nice about it, people will pay. And they will pay on time, every time, because you've got that personal rapport with them. Okay, what to do after you get paid. So, kind of conjoins the next one. What you should do after you get paid, I should have taken my own advice here, is put away an amount of money to cover your tax. That might be income tax or GST or ACC, or you might still have student loans, depending what stage in your career you're at. But put that money away, and then this is the important bit, don't touch it. Because the second thing, don't go and dip into your tax money to buy a new iPhone. I know it can be tempting, I did it, I regret it, because that money does not come back. You've basically taken a whole bunch of money you should have set aside for tax, and you spent a couple of grand on an iPhone, and then you'll say to yourself, don't worry, I'll just put more away next time. But next time that doesn't happen, and you're continually chasing your tail, and as anyone like me who's got into trouble with not being able to pay the right amount of tax, whilst IRD are lovely people, they're not very forgiving when you've basically spent the money that is theirs. And so the best way to think about the money you get paid is that a big chunk of that does not belong to you. It belongs to IRD. And the sooner you can just get that out of your mind, the better, because then you won't be tempted to dip into it for a family holiday or for an iPhone or whatever else I wasted money on. All right, this comes up a fair amount with a lot of the coaches we work with around hiring subcontractors. So when do you hire a subcontractor versus a permanent employee? And it's a really interesting one. If you look at the way we buy things these days, particularly if you think about any software that you buy, it tends to be kind of pay as you go, pay for what you need. It might be a subscription model. And if you think about subcontractors in that way, it's a lot easier to realize when you need them and when you need permanent staff. So for instance, if you need someone for a period of time and you're not sure whether that's going to be a long-term job, so you need someone for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, it might even be 3 months, or you need someone to come travel with you for a period of time, and you know that there's a finite point where you will probably not need that person, then subcontractors is totally fine. You hire a subcontractor, they send you an invoice, you pay on time because you don't want to have an awkward conversation from them. So permanent employees is very different. So when you know there is a permanent need for a member of staff that is going to work full-time and is going to be in your business performing that service for the long term, you must go through the permanent employment road. You cannot hire subcontractors for what is effectively a permanent job. So really important to know the difference there. There's a lot of really good online literature around this. But I always think about it that if there is a finite end date or a finite specialist skill that I need, then subcontractors is totally fine. And as a sole trader or as a company, you can hire subcontractors. It is a very normal practice. It is not a dodgy thing to subcontract someone into your business. What is worse is hiring permanent members of staff where you don't actually need them. Because you incur costs, you have to get various amounts of compliance in place for them, and if suddenly you turn around in 6 weeks' time, you don't need that person anymore, it's very awkward. Payroll is a business expense. Again, a lot of people don't think of it this way. So the money you're paying out in payroll, that is actually a business expense. And lastly, you don't need to be incorporated or be a company to have employees or subcontractors. So as a sole trader, you can go and employ permanent staff, you can go and employ subcontractors, you can employ as many as you like. If you think about a lot of the tradies we work with, there'll be guys who will be running an entire job site of subcontractors because they're building a house and they need specialist skills for small periods of time with a fixed end date, and they're not sure whether or not they're going to have sustained work. So if you get comfortable with the difference between subcontractors and employees, it makes the whole thing a lot easier. Okay, managing the financial side. So if you're not sure about business expenses, there's, again, a lot of literature. You can check out our website. There's a whole bunch of free resources on there. But knowing what expenses you can claim is really important, because that will reduce the amount of your income that you get taxed on. So everything from equipment, travel costs. If you've got variable places that you go to in order to work, you can claim the cost of that travel or some proportion of it. Think about where you're running your business from. If you have a premises or you have a portion of your home that you are using to run your business, whether that's the administrative work or whether that's talking to clients or whether that's even some areas that you use for practicing, all of that is a business expense. You can write off the cost of that as part of running your business. And so many times you find, particularly when people are in what we call kind of passion or vocational industries, a lot of people forget to claim all their business expenses because they probably buy them for themselves when they were in the game, they'd be doing the same things. But if you're buying things specifically to do with your clients, and that can be anything from the actual equipment to even some of the subcontractor expenses that you might have, just make sure you can claim them as a business expense. Make sure you actually lodge those when you come to do your taxes, because otherwise you're going to miss out. And there's so much, particularly around that home office area. So you can designate a percentage of your home floor space to use as a home office. You can say, well, it's probably about 10 meters squared plus all the equipment storage space. And that works out as, I don't know, 10% of the size of my home. You can then expense 10% of your utilities, your rent. You've got your mortgage interest. You've got maintenance and upkeep. We had one woman once who claimed all of her toilet paper. I would not advise that. It's really not worth it. She was claiming 10% of a $10 roll of toilet paper, and I had to have a conversation with her about, do you understand how little money you're actually saving here? But she did it. She wanted to do it. She had the time to do it, bless her. But if you know what you can claim, you can really reduce the amount of your income that you get taxed on. Claim your expenses throughout the year. We always talk about the receipt cupboard of sadness, where everyone like bungs their receipts into a cupboard all year, and then when it comes to filing their taxes, they end up having to open the cupboard or box or shoebox, whatever it is, and it's just that moment of like having to go through and categorize a whole bunch of expenses, and that's the time when you usually chip off the ones that are most expensive and you sack off the rest because you go, I can't be bothered, I've got better things to do. So throughout the year, whether you're putting them in a spreadsheet, whether you're using HNRY or other accounting software, or whatever you're doing, just do it throughout the year. Do it every couple of weeks, once a month, whatever it might be. We're big advocates for trying to get rid of the receipt cupboard of sadness. Know your obligations. So again, things like tax payments, knowing when they're due, knowing how much you might have to pay, knowing about ACC. It doesn't take too long. Again, I was a rookie at this when I started. I had no idea. And if I can understand it, you're all way smarter than me, you'll be able to understand this stuff, right? Which is, what are my obligations? When am I going to need to pay taxes? How much roughly do I need to be paying? You don't want to miss a tax payment and then you get IRB on your back and it's terrible. We talked a little bit about earlier, putting money away in savings and investments. So we talked to the folks at sorted.co.nz. I think their non-friendly title is the Commission for Financial Sustainability or something. Great government department with a really good website with tips about building strong financial habits. Again, that might just be on a regular basis, putting away a little bit of money into savings or investments. It might be putting a bit of money aside for a family holiday or a savings goal, whatever that might be. But if you forget about doing your savings, if you forget about putting something aside, you might be caught out later down the line. Again, it's all about thinking a little bit more as a business and less of a sort of being in the sport in general. Lastly, get the most out of KiwiSaver. I'm sure you all know this, but as self-employed people, if you contribute a certain amount to your KiwiSaver, the government will match it. It is literally free money. It's literally free money. I think it's $1,000. It's called like the member tax credit. If you put $1,000 into your KiwiSaver each year, the government will give you $1,000 free into your KiwiSaver. If that's the only thing you take away from this, just put $1,000 in your KiwiSaver. You can do it on the day before. I think it's like 31st of July is the deadline. So right at the end of July, you can just whack $1,000 in, the government gives you free money. It's brilliant. All right, I'm going to move to Q&A in a second, but I'm going to shamelessly plug what we do at HNRY. I noticed when I was downstairs that I do not meet the criteria for the sportswear coming in here. This is not designated tennis wear, and this is advertising, so I'm about to get thrown out, I'm sure. Not the first time I haven't met the dress code in some way. So look, I'll give you a quick rundown of what HNRY does, and then I want to open up some questions. What we do as an accountancy, we give you an account to get paid into, your own unique account, and anytime you get paid, we automatically calculate and deduct and pay all of your taxes. Income tax, student loan, ACC, whatever it is. We give you software and a mobile app. You can send invoices, you can raise all your expenses. In the next month or so, we have a HNRY debit card coming out, so you can buy all your business expenses on a HNRY debit card, and all of your expenses get loaded and claimed for you throughout the year. So effectively, every time you're earning, your expenses are all getting taken into account, which means at the end of the year, you never have a tax bill. So no more tax bills, no more provisional tax, you're all paid up. You can set up automatic allocations to savings, retirement accounts, or any local bank account, and then you get access, unlimited access to our team of accountants who are all local. We've got 70 people down in Wellington, and they're all on live chat and available for phone calls, and you can talk to them about your business, and you can ask what you can claim as a business expense. You can even ask how to deal with belligerent clients. We have quite a few of those. But look, that wasn't the purpose of being here. I really just wanted to focus on the other stuff around kind of running your business in a really good way. But now, if you've been holding your heckles, now is the opportunity for you to throw stuff, whatever you want to do. I don't know how much time we have for questions, but I know I'm coming between you and your lunch, but feel free to ask me literally anything.
How much does the program cost?
So we charge on a pay-as-you-go basis, so it's a 1% of income up to a maximum of $1,500 a year. So that gets you all of your accounting done, access to the accountants, full accounting software, debit cards, what else to get you, all your taxes paid and filed. And I think we're going to be doing a promo for you guys, so we'll do a money off code that I can give to Adam and you can distribute, and you can all come and try the platform out for free.
I guess it's just a suggestion what I want to ask. Something that I'm actually quite bad at is the Kiwi Saver. What I do is I normally pay the minimum.
Yeah.
And I just get I think it's only 500 what you get. I think
is it 500?
They give you half. You got to pay 1,000.
See, I'm just bigging it up. I'm just like, chuck your money in, government gives you free money.
You've got to put 1,000 in though.
You've got to put 1,000 in.
You get 500.
and you only get half of it. That's all I do.
See, that's the problem.
And that's what would you recommend?
I just think that good financial habits thing, and one of the things that we did a while ago with our platform is you can set up a percentage allocation to go into your Kiwi Saver every time you get paid. So you can pay that 3% every time you get paid, or 5%, or whatever it is. You can set maximums, you can set goals. But what I would say is, if you're going to pay into Kiwi Saver, just do it consistently. Consistently, every time you get paid, make sure you take a bunch of that and you go, that is for Kiwi Saver or savings or whatever it is.
So you definitely recommend that I should do it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think everyone should be paying into Kiwi Saver, everyone, or at least some kind of retirement vehicle, whatever that might be. Really important to just build those good financial habits.
Thank you.
No worries.
If you're already using another software for taking payments, is HNRY still useful to use?
Are you using like a Stripe or a PayPal? Or
no, it's a software called HNRY.
Okay, yeah, you can just plug anything you're using to take payments, you can just plug straight into HNRY.
So whenever you get a payment, you just put that into HNRY?
Yeah, so you put that into HNRY, and so when you get paid out of HNRY, whatever it is, you just put your HNRY account in there and get paid through, and we'll just do the Cool. Any final questions before I leave you?
Proportion of your house percentage.
So our team can help you work out the proportion of your house. So usually it comes down to how much you're storing for using for storing equipment, how much you're using for kind of administrative tasks. Do you have an office that you use? But look, a lot of the time it's just approximate, okay? No one's going to ask you to get the tape measure out. IRD is not going to come down and work it out for you. You're just going, roughly how much of my home am I using? And as long as, as long as it can stand up to critical scrutiny, right? As long as if someone came around and said, are you really using all of this? You could go, well look, half of my garage is all equipment. I've got this home office that I use. That's all you need to be doing. But we can help you with that if you need to. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy your lunch.
All right, thank you, team. So yeah, thanks to James. I think you might be hanging a little bit longer if you've got any questions. But yeah, caterers will be giving